George. I go by George. I'm originally from Budapest, and I earned two masters there and a PhD in American Studies from the University of Iowa. Since 2014, I have been working as a historian of the 20th century United States, transatlantic and Native American history at the University of Stirling, which they also call the Brave Heart of American Studies. And I am just trying to see if there's something there. Hopefully this is now you're seeing a full screen. Um, my partner and I have been involved with IASA and RIAS in various capacities since something like 2005. Not as an officer, because in 2005 I was a green PhD student just after my first year at the University of Iowa. My partner in coordinating this program is Dr. Jessica Sayers. She has a recent PhD in comparative literature from the University of Edinburgh, Scotland in the UK. Unfortunately, she cannot be here today due to a very late notice a family health emergency. So, but she will be there for the fellows to help them navigate any kind of any issues in the program if they need help. And so you see her email there as well, and you also have it already. This is a so-called light touch mentoring program that is supposed to last for about 12 months. It involves about half a dozen of us IASA and RIAS officers, and we are supposed to be, well, mentoring or doing something close to it to a total of 15 IASA Emerging Scholar Fellows yourselves. For the fellows, this program should be helping you acquire career skills and opportunities, especially in service and leadership at scholarly associations. So that's the focus. For us mentors, the program acquaints and hopefully attracts fellows to want to run for and serve as an officer in IASA and RIAS, but this is obviously because of the transferability of your skills. This is not the exclusive focus. The program features this current online general orientation by some of us IASA officers and for the fellows. The next, after this, the next event will be each IASA and RIAS mentor will be giving an online orientation about their own position to their group of fellows. Over then the following 12 months, you should be having several meetings, including one that will hopefully in some ways be involving shadowing, and that as well as in between these meetings you should be getting some tasks and exercises as well as challenging yourselves as fellows. There should be one of these meetings should be a self-reflective meeting by the mentor for the fellows as well about where you are, what you think you have acquired and where you're headed. And I really hope that there should be at least one meeting of the mentor with the fellows at some of the IASA gatherings. Currently, what we have on our horizon is the World Congress in early September in Katowice, Poland. So we have already gone through the orientation leaders introduction. You can tick that off of the structure of what we are going through today in this orientation. We have just had the program summary. Now I will take you on a whirlwind tour called the American Studies History Time Machine, which will be really fast. After that, there will be Professor Mariani will tell us about the history and character of IASA and RIAS. Then hopefully there will be a little bit of talking by the fellows, each introducing themselves in about a minute. Then I will discuss as briefly as I can the expectations for the fellows. Then hopefully the mentors who are here will be able to introduce themselves again in very shortly in a concise way. I will even more briefly outline the expectations for the mentors, just so that the fellows actually know that these are some of the things that the fellows had received in their orientation. And hopefully we'll be able to discuss a little bit maybe on maybe about tips and tricks and especially engaging across cultures and traditions. Now, I am stopping sharing this screen and I am starting to share my other screen, which is the other. So, okay, yeah, good. So welcome to the American Studies History Time Machine, which was developed by myself. This will give you a whirlwind history of the fields of American studies in under 10 minutes. So pay close attention because if you blink, you may just miss half a century. Those of us in United States history love to hate the Proto-American Studies Frederick Jackson Turner's frontier thesis, with its totalizing obsession with the history of the West and its American exceptionalism. However, those of us trained in American studies derive the origins of this interdisciplinary field from the interwar period, when a group of intellectual historians and literary scholars began focusing on the themes and or characteristics that they assumed were unique to the one single mindset or tradition of US culture that they believed in, the American character, as derived from an intellectual construction. This was inevitably the intellectual equivalent of an earlier American exceptionalism. There's more. In the heat of the early Cold War, the US government seized on American studies in an effort to combat communism with its cultural diplomacy programs, such as the Fulbright exchanges and the embassy libraries and others. The field's message of American exceptionalism was now part of the US national mission to spread its American way of life in the world. In the hinterland, from a dose of social and cultural history in the 1970s, American studies turned to focus on so-called dense facts that, quote, both reveal deeper meanings inside themselves and point outward to other facts, other ideas, and other meanings in the study of cultural experiences and cultural media. But this strand was actually quite tame compared to its siblings. The social movements of the 1960s shattered any remaining master narrative of American studies and replaced it with a number of interdisciplinary fields, illuminating the multiplicity of US cultures and history, especially through the studies of the experience of groups of people and social categories previously disregarded or relegated to other disciplines. One of the lasting legacies of second wave feminism was to develop the interdisciplinary study of the social construction, categories, norms, challenges, and alternatives of women, gender, and sexuality. This field is both rooted in and feeds back into activism for gender and sexual rights, protection under law, and fair representation in society, culture, and politics. And it has continued relevance with the recent study of intersectionality. Subsequently, in the 1990s, activists who had worked their way into academia and academics who had chosen disciplined and conventional early projects upon receiving tenure embarked on studying American sexualities and gender identities in culture and history. This was queer studies. In the 1990s, the influence of English, British, and US American cultural studies turned the field to focus on some classic cultural forms, issues of class and cultural hierarchies, and subcultures and audiences. In the 1980s, a set of paradigms or re-territorialized American studies from its conventional US-centered geography to mechanisms, entities, or zones other than the classic nation state. Post-colonial studies, borderland studies, and Black studies. By the 1990s, American studies was ripe for the transnational turn, which aimed to trace how its previously acclaimed unique features and developments in society, culture, and politics were actually shaped by forces, events, groups of people, ideas, and processes that transcended or circulated across its borders. One strand of this was American Empire Studies, which received another boost for its continued relevance with the United States government's two wars in the early 21st century and aimed to trace the history, cultural context, various models, and current analyses of the United States as an empire. Also in the early 21st century, emerged a field that studied the United States not as a unique entity, but as one of the world's settler colonial societies, where the European settlers colonized and erased, replaced, and or exploited the indigenous populations. This paradigm's applied or activist dimension is part of the decolonial or the process of decolonization. Now, this is your chance, or intellectually, you will want to come back to this to fill our gaps with more recent and new approaches, maybe reorienting American studies and related fields. Some of you might probably say, man, you're just so late for this. I already know there's 5. But closer to us, out of the framework of the Cold War, 2 strands of American studies emerged in Europe. The first one is oriented towards text and literary and cultural American studies, and it has been infused with the domestic US paradigms of the last 40 years. In the post-communist zone, this trend was early on combined with a commitment to a new Atlantic alliance with the United States. The other strand of American studies in Europe is more area studies, focusing on the study of history, society, government, politics, and democracy and foreign policy of the United States. These 2 strands are sometimes also combined into North American studies, incorporating not only the United States, but also Canadian studies and the study of Mexico. In most European countries, US and home country relations, migration, diaspora, diplomacy, and the literary reception studies of United States formations in those home societies are also other mainstays of Americanist scholars. And finally, since Brexit, Britain is now supposed to be separate from Europe. We ought to understand American studies in the United Kingdom as rooted in the UK's historical special relationship with the United States. It has a heavy emphasis on history, some on politics, and some on literatures and cultures. However, since 2014, what had previously existed as an independent interdisciplinary field, American studies, has been folded back into traditional disciplines. This means that British American studies, at least in my analysis, is a multidisciplinary field with American, US, North American, or hemispheric content. There. That was the time machine. I hope you didn't get too dizzy. And let me just sorry, fiddling around a little bit with this to get back to where I was. Yes. And I believe that I should be giving it over to Professor Mariani for his discussing the history and the character of IASA and RIAS.
Thanks a lot, Gyorgy, and congratulations. I mean, I think you've done a really terrific job, and you've been able to compress so much information in only a few minutes. And I wish I had the ability to do that myself. I don't think I'm going to be that good. I don't also not even have a presentation to share with you, but I will try to give you a little bit of the history of the association from the inside, and to especially sort of emphasize some of the features of this association, so that you can ask yourself, do I really want to be involved in this project? What is it that I can gain from becoming an active IASA member, and what is there for me to learn? What is it, what good does it do for my career? Because I think that we have to ask these questions. We have to be idealistic, but also realistic in many ways. So let me just say that obviously the International American Studies Association was essentially born out of that transnational turn that Gyorgy mentioned earlier on. And it was that there was a group of scholars that met with a grant that they received from, I believe, ironically enough, the U.S. State Department or some such body, because they met in Bellagio in Italy, where actually there is a wonderful villa where guests of the Bellagio Center with can meet and convene to discuss important matters in cultural history. And in this case, a group of scholars that came essentially from all over the world, even though I believe that the original group did not have anyone who was from Africa. But all countries were essentially represented. And obviously, the ones that were most represented were the Americas, both North and South, Europe, and then less so Asia, and there were a couple of people from also from New Zealand and Australia. So the idea was to really bring together people who were interested in a transnational, international perspective. And here, I think we have to begin by, asking a question. We all know that there are national associations of whatever studies. There is a National Association of American Studies in Italy, just as there is one in the States, in practically all over the world. In some countries, maybe there are even more than just one association. But all these associations are anchored onto a nation. Okay, and there is, of course, a European Association of American Studies, which has been in existence for a while. But that association is essentially a federation of the various European national associations. So it just brings together pre-existing associations. That it doesn't really entail any paradigm shift, or it's only a kind of body that is built of pre-existing associations, which all have a national affiliation. The idea behind the International American Studies Association was that American studies were too important, were too crucial, were too rich from various points of view, a topic to be left only to the study of a national association like the American Association of American Studies or other national associations, that a kind of international conversation was necessary, because it's perhaps no accident that the association came together, or the sort of the beginnings of the association came together after the fall of the Berlin Wall, because basically we were moving towards a new kind of global scenario, where the United States were emerging as the new world hegemon, without the strong presence of that other superpower that had faced the U.S. for so long. And so there was a feeling that to make sense of this condition, the contribution of all scholars from all over the world was needed, precisely to move away from a series of nation-based paradigms. And this applies, of course, chiefly to American studies as it was practiced within the United States, which needed a sort of a shakeup on transnational, international grounds, but also in a way, a shakeup of the way that national associations had practiced American studies, because as Gyorgy noted earlier on, these national associations were largely born out of a kind of more or less explicit, American intervention or American desire to have the culture of the United States studied and disseminated within the country for, geopolitical reasons. And so, a number of issues were at stake. Now, the association really came together in 2003 when its first World Congress was held in Leiden, in the Netherlands, in a place, Leiden, which of course had a strong symbolic resonance. And the idea, the ambition of the association was really to basically provide a new foundation for American studies worldwide. And in, I think, the optimistic view of the founders, the idea was that eventually some sort of, international federation of various national associations would come together. But that wasn't really the main venue that was pursued from the very beginning. In other words, the founders, our founding mothers and fathers, didn't go around knocking on the doors of the various national associations asking them, do you think it would be a good idea to form an international association? No, because they believed that a sort of epistemological foundation had to come first before the sort of the political institutional phase would set in. And this is, essentially one of the cruxes on which the association has, in many ways, always battled within itself. There have always been, I think it's fair to say, now let me say, I should have actually premised my presentation by saying who I am. I was president of the International American Studies Association from 2011 to 2015. Before that, from 2007 to 2011, I was vice president, while Jane Desmond was president of the association. And before that, I was a member of the executive council of the association. So I was involved with the association from almost the very beginning, even though I wasn't there at the first World Congress. And I was educated in Italy, but I received a PhD from Rutgers University. I lived in the States for more than 10 years, and then eventually I came back to Italy. And I've been teaching first at the University of Salerno, and then ever since at the University of Rome. And I'm actually on the verge of retirement because I'm due to retire in 2024. So having said that, it's important that you understand that this is also, even though I'm a president of the association, I've been heavily involved with the association. These are my personal ideas, which I think are fairly, I try to make an effort to be as objective as possible. But perhaps other people, other presidents, other high officers of the association would give different nuances to certain issues. This is the way I see it. It seems to me that from the very beginning there were two ideas about this association. One was that this association really had to lay the grounds for a complete reorganization of American studies at a world level, and basically had to supplant existing associations, or sort of make them subordinate to the project of international American studies. And then there was another idea that was that international American studies or transnational American studies, comparative American studies, hemispheric studies, Pacific studies, all these studies that, area studies that try to decenter position of the U.S. as, the center of of every discourse that we develop and organize. Well, that this was just one way of doing American studies, but it wasn't going to change, the field completely. It was just a sort of a kind of idea that had to be pursued, that could actually bring about very interesting discoveries. It could redraw in many ways the boundaries of the discipline, but we didn't have to be overly ambitious. Okay, it seems to me that these two main lines of what the IASA was supposed to be have confronted each other ever since. And I personally thought, I mean, some people didn't see it this way. I thought that this was a productive tension, and that we were not supposed to look necessarily for a kind of dialectical synthesis, of which was probably impossible. But other people felt differently, and this also explains, I think, the ebb and flows of the association. The other thing that I want to say is that the journal, the Review of International American Studies, for a while which was originally just a newsletter, and then at some point the decision was made. And again, also that decision was very controversial. Were people who voted against the idea of turning the journal into a peer-reviewed journal. That seemed to some people overly ambitious. Again, that we were just taking, a step that we were not really able to take. But the decision was made. We had an editor-in-chief, Serena. We had a number of editors-in-chief, up to Serena Johnson-Roulier, who was editor for a while and gave the journal, I think, an interesting angle. But then she also had other ideas on how the journal could be developed. There were lots of discussions. In the end, I was made editor-in-chief, and I tried to take care mostly some organizational issues that seemed to me that needed to be addressed, because otherwise we would have had no journal. Forget what the intellectual policy or the intellectual ambition of the journal, but without an infrastructure and an organization, it was impossible to continue with a journal. And I think that thanks mostly to the efforts of Pavel Jędrzejko and myself, we have succeeded in turning RIAS into a reputable publication, which of course doesn't stand up to other journals in the field, like American literature or American literary history, but it is, I think, getting closer. Okay. Now, one thing, and this is the last point I'm going to make, and of course, I would be happy if anybody wants to know more and discuss more. I will be happy to meet with whoever wants to meet with me online, wherever you are in the world, and with at greater leisure, with more time, and give you more details about the history of the association and other questions that you might have. But what I want to say is that one thing that has set the association, and in a way also the journal, apart from any other association in the world that I know of, is that this association has no sponsors whatsoever, no institutional affiliation. There is no university, there is no council of learned societies, research council, no, nothing of that sort. We've always sort of tried with, and not always succeeded, I must say, to support ourselves with the money that we were able to generate But this money has been dwindling and almost come to zero in the last few years, because the way we made money was basically through world congresses. Because all the efforts I made, and I was president and vice president for a total of 8 years, all the efforts we made to get members of the association to pay yearly dues all failed miserably. And therefore, you understand that it is one thing to be a member of an association that may have a small budget, but it has a budget, it has some money that it can count on. And it's another thing to be a member of an association that basically lives off the volunteer work of its members, which often happens, but has no money whatsoever. In fact, sometimes we, out of our own pocket, when I say we, I mean especially the people who were in some position of leadership or responsibility, forked out money ourselves to cover for what was not coming from other venues. So obviously we have an issue that I don't think has ever been solved. I have to be very, very honest about this. That we don't have the money, and this doesn't take anything away from the from the good work that I think we have been doing. Yes, and as Gabriela says, we do not even have a set banking account, and you wouldn't believe it how complicated it is to run an association that is not affiliated to a national body or to a sort of a specific location. We've had, incredible, I'm not going to tell you a story. It's not very interesting. It's just that, we are facing a number of organizational and bureaucratic complications, which we are still trying to set out, to figure out. So one thing that you have to expect is that there's a lot of work to be done, okay? But what I think is very good and very interesting for a young scholar in this association is that this association may lack the resources, the means that other associations have, but it has the human resources or the human outreach that no other association I belong to in my life has ever had. And I think, the fact that here we are with, people connected from all over the world is the best illustration of what I'm saying. And the kinds of conversations, the kinds of exchanges that I've had over the years, thanks to the International American Studies Association, I've never had before, and I would have never been able to have. Because it is this mix of people, it is bringing together all these people that makes a difference. It is the enthusiasm and the desire really to engage in a way of doing scholarship that is different from the sort of what we usually do, that provides you with unique opportunities. And I can say, and this is my last point, as I said, I'm on the verge of retirement. So I'm at that stage in life where, unfortunately, it's easier to look back than to look forward. And if I look back and I think that, the IASA may have not existed, my career, the shape of my career would have been completely different. And here I'm also talking about scholarship opportunities, research opportunities, not necessarily money, but that can also come sometimes. But it's meeting people, hooking up with other people, and generating ideas that allows you to lay out the foundations for research projects, for intellectual, exchanges, for, interesting conversations that you would not have otherwise. So that's that's all I can say in 20 minutes, and I thank you for listening.
I can't find my clapping hands, the virtual clapping hands. So, but yeah, it's if you ever manage to catch Professor Mariani, please treat him to something that he likes, and just ask him questions, ask him the hard questions. He loves the hard questions too. So now I hope that our fellows are willing to introduce themselves, and this is basically just pretty much the same things that you put in. You could just condense that. You put in your application, so your name, what discipline you were trained in, well, what are your top 3 interests, and that's totally fine. We know we have that on file, so we know it's totally fine to veer off. And do you have any specific goals with the fellowship? So I'll just give this over to people to do it. Anyone can jump in.
So may I begin? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, so my name is Roman Kushnir. I'm trained as well in English studies mostly, and I'm interested, well, it's research-wise, I'm interested in this ethnic and immigrant literatures in the United States, with emphasis on Nordic American literatures, and also material culture, and then perhaps also nostalgia in relation to the Americas. Any specific goals with fellowship? Well, to develop my research skills, to meet you guys, and to just to get some more experience as an early research scholar, so to say. Thank you.
May I?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Avni Bhatnagar, and currently I'm teaching at Dayal Singh College, University of Delhi, India. And I have 5 years of full-time teaching experience, and I completed my PhD in 2019. And drama and performance, film studies, philosophy, biographies, these are some of my areas of interest, and I'm trained in editorial skills, academic writings, and event organizing. I had been involved in the institute, from all these areas, and I'm looking forward to IASA to have an exposure, to be able to interact with more and more people who are, from all across the world, and I'm really looking forward to exchange ideas which can contribute to the larger needs of the people. And also, I wish to enhance various skills of academic writing, event organizing, and editing. Thank you.
I can go next.
Very good.
Yeah, hello everyone. So I'm Yasmina Kadir. I'm originally from Tunisia, but I'm doing my research. I'm a PhD student, 5th year PhD student. So I'm about hopefully to finish my research. I'm doing my research at the University of Debrecen in Hungary. And my research project focuses on cultural memory and trauma in Jasmine Ward's fiction. Jasmine Ward is an African-American writer, and my academic interests include basically and mostly African-American studies, culture, literature, popular culture, eco-criticism, environmental studies, memory and trauma studies too, gender also studies. So I have a BA and MA in English language and literature from the University of Humanities, Arts and Letters in Tunisia. And I was a Fulbright foreign language teacher assistant at Stanford University in 2011-2012. So I'm really interested in the in this wonderful project, basically, and mostly to just to build kind of academic relationships, to acquire new skills, academic skills, especially in publishing, editing, research, networking, to enhance my knowledge in American studies, and to really to just to be an active really member in a body that focuses on American studies in its different areas. And yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll jump in. Hi, everyone. I'm Elisa Pesce. I'm from Italy, but I'm doing my PhD in Glasgow. I'm in my third year, and my research project is on the Maximalist novel by women writers post-1990. So my research interests are mostly around indigenous literature. I mean, pretty much all non-white US literature, just as a very broad umbrella. Yeah, and also feminism and gender studies as well. I was trained in English literature and American studies, but also I've worked as a translator for many years and as an EFL teacher. So I kind of have this double kind of trainings. In the fellowship, I would like to further develop my skills both in publishing and organizing conferences, and also learn how to create like networks within and outside academia. In particular, I'm interested in creating bridges between the academia and previous stages in public education.
Would I go next? Okay. My name is Emilio Gianotti. I have a degree in comparative literature from the University of Perugia, and I'm now halfway through my PhD at the University of Urbino in Italy. I study American popular genres, such as detective fiction, science fiction, horror, and the mixings thereof. And I'm especially interested in the fields of science literature, relationship, gender studies, and recently I've been working on native studies, especially in the colonial American period. I'm interested, well, my goals within the fellowship are to gain experience in the academic world, especially for as much as concerns the parallel works that a scholar has, apart from the academic work that we all share. I've also been teaching for 4 years before obtaining my PhD scholarship, but I taught kids and in the morning and the elderly at night for 4 years, and it was a great experience. I've also have some experience in translation.
I can go next. Thanks. I am Laura. I use they, them pronouns. I'm non-binary, just FYI. I got my PhD in English literature in 2020 at the University of Washington in Seattle, but I was trained specifically in North American Indigenous Studies. And so I would say my interest then would be like in Indigenous Studies and North American literatures, like 20th and 21st century. And of course, everything. I read relatively widely, so I'm just trying to stay on top of like everything in American studies. So I read a lot of like African American studies and Asian American studies and other stuff. I'm in a funny place right now because I just got a word that I got a postdoc, but I also just did the second round interview for a tenure track professorship at the institution that I'm currently at, and I don't hear back from that until next week or something. So I don't know yet what I'm doing as of next year, but currently I'm just a university teacher at this institution in the Netherlands. I'm from Belgium originally. I don't think I said that yet. And so I'm teaching in an American Studies program now. I've been teaching since 2015 in total, just all through my PhD as well. But yeah, I'm doing this fellowship mostly because I am fairly new to the European like academic scene, and the US American studies scene feels really closed to like only mainly American scholars. Like it's kind of hard. Like it feels like they don't read that much outside of that. And so I'm just really interested in this international concept to like really get these ideas from all over. And kind of break out of some of the more narrow conversations. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for organizing this, George, and everybody. Thank you.
Hi, I'll go next if I don't know if there's more people waiting. So my name's Sada. I earned my PhD 1 year ago. I am now a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Santiago de Compostela in Spain. I also studied in this area in northwestern Spain. I earned a BA in English Studies and then an MA in Literary Studies, which comprised both European and North American literature mostly. But I specialized in American Studies with a dissertation on fatherhood and ethics on contemporary lit, American, that is. And as of lately, I've been working on waste studies and working on the representation of poor whites in American literature, also like post-industrial landscape and so forth. And I just, well, my goals for this fellowship were just, my main motivation was just to answer the question that has been bugging me for forever. How does an association work? That's pretty much why I'm here. I'm just really eager to learn as much as I can and meet as many people as possible. And so I'm really happy to be here. And also thanks for the opportunity.
I think Alice may be the last person because she hasn't gone yet.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Alice de Galzin. I am French and Italian, and I just completed my PhD at the University of Edinburgh. So I passed my viva in March and I haven't graduated yet. In my doctoral dissertation entitled Rewriting the Life of an Ultra-Radical, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Margaret Fuller, and Memoirs of Margaret Fuller Osterley, I looked at Emerson's and Fuller's different understandings of womanhood and how that impacted their views of society and of the American nation. At the moment, I'm trying to accumulate as much knowledge and experience as possible to enter the academic job market. I have an exciting book project that I'm going to start working on this summer, thanks to a fellowship I got at the American Antiquarian Society, so I'm really excited. I feel really, really grateful to be here and for opportunities like this one. So I wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone who organized this and made it possible. I am specifically interested in learning about scholarly kind of publishing and editorial work, but also working on grant applications, organizing conferences, and yeah, managing scholarly associations. Thank you.
Then my turn, probably.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yep. So my name is Maria, and I'm a PhD student at the Department of American Culture and Literature at Hacettepe University in Turkey. I have 2 MA degrees, one from the State University of Kiev in Ukraine, as I'm originally Ukrainian, and the second from the department which I currently study at. In Ankara. Furthermore, I live now in Central Asia, in Kyrgyzstan, so there is a lot of multiculturalism going on in my personal life as well. These are also my scientific interests, as I work with ethnic American literatures, transculturalism, transnationalism, and that kind of field. As for the goals, I'm in my third year of my PhD studies, so I was thinking about scientific networking, but also the as I am a member of several associations of American studies, I was interested how this international association can function. So what Professor Mariani just told, just hit a note with me. It was really interesting. The idea is well, very big, and I hope that it works. And as young scholars, we can also make our contribution to that. So, well, thank you for the opportunity, and glad to see and meet everyone.
Is there anyone who I missed? Is there anyone who I missed? If no, then what I'm gonna try to do is sort of zip through really quick to what you are being asked to do as a fellow. So you are being asked to be, for the fellowship program, be a sort of a mentee, and I'm using this advisedly, to a few IASA or RIAS, IASA officers or RIAS editors who will be your mentors. Now, one of our mentors, Dr. Jennifer Frost, is very right to point out that this cannot really be called, rightly, a mentoring program, because mentoring doesn't take place in groups. More one-on-one, and even 6 people for a group is just too many to mentor. But until we have more mentors, and hopefully maybe next year we'll have more mentors, we'll just have to be doing this in groups according to our mentors and fellows' capacities. So that's kind of why it sounds strange, but nevertheless, we're aiming to do this, right? So you are being asked to, after this session, to attend the first meeting, first mentoring sessions of several IASA or RIAS mentors, so several of them. Over time, you can and should, and you're advised to selectively drift to the few mentors who you feel are best to as a best fit for your interest and your style. Sorry about this. This was introduction by Jessica, but I'm taking over for her. So the format. We're now at the format. Due to our geographical dispersal and modest means, we will have to do most of our mentoring sessions remotely. So please do your best to attend these sessions live, and don't just count on the possibility that they may be recorded. Some of them may be recorded, others may not be recorded, because your mentors may just want to be very honest with you, with the group, and they might not want to go on record with some cuss words. You know, about their frustration with, you know, how things go, IASA, not about you, but IASA, RIAS, and how things have, some things we have won, some things we have lost. But from the, also from the get-go, if you can, please try to go to any and all in-person on-site mentoring events in your country or region. And I know I will try to do one of those, at least, you know, a hybrid one. The reason why I urge you to attend live and in-person mentoring event is because this hones your interpersonal professional skills. And it is absolutely crucial for your mentoring relationship, as well as for your cohort building and scholarly networking. Because of all the professional in-person meetings that we have missed during the pandemic, 2 full years in some cases, you early career folks are really in dire need of building trust and personal relationships. And some of these are structured, and some of these are absolutely informal and unstructured. Our scholars, our scholarship, our actual scholarly outputs included, actually depends on our social relationships at their core, meaning our personal acquaintances and trust. I am hoping that one of your mentoring sessions will be held at the IASA World Congress. That's September 7th to the 10th this year in Katowice, Poland. Already at the first mentoring group meeting, you should start discussing your opportunities to go to this Congress and in what form you will want to plan your mentoring meeting there. It can be on the program as a structured event, or it can be off the program. It has plus and minuses to both. This mentoring program, as for the approach, will not be about you fellows asking the questions and the mentors giving their answers, definitive answers, doling out their wisdom. Your mentors will not try to paint an attractive picture of either IASA or RIAS, or pose as an all-knowing model of the association officer or journal editor. It should be about you as fellows and they as mentors exploring a number of issues together from your interest and from the issues that they encountered in their positions, in their challenges and potential solutions. So it is actually helpful when your mentor says, actually, I don't know the answer to that question. Hopefully they will turn it around and say, what are the potential solutions that we can think of for this that we could try later in IASA and RIAS. Let me just double check. Right. Yes, right. So code of conduct. Again, this is not a code of conduct. It's simply just recommendations of this is how we could best navigate this program, because we're doing this for the first time as well as you are. This program will try to help you reorient or orient yourself toward making connections between people, making the connections in your mind, and then between actual people, introducing people yourselves to them, and so on and so on. In terms of research interest, especially, your mentors will be keeping an eye out for you for opportunities and anything, some more general, some more specific. They will hopefully be sending opportunities as they encounter over to you. So this is why sort of email will be a crucial one. Not all of these may be relevant to you, but do keep an open mind. And also, even if they are not a fit for you right now, you may want to think about entering them into your funding and opportunities calendar. If you don't have one yet, create one, if it's just a Word document, this I used to have. So you never know, or keep thinking about anybody you know who may be interested. This is just something that should become our second nature. It's one of those ways of keeping the networking mind open. For formalities, we're all asking you to start off the first off as calling people Dr. XYZ. It is up to you and them to sort of figure out what name you and them would like to be called by. So sort of start out with formal, and then we can go informal, but do not just assume. I have colleagues themselves too in the UK. It seems to be a cultural aspect that people assume that they can just cold email you saying, hello, Gyorgy. That's a colleague. So anyways, but you'll find out more about myself and why I respond to that in that way. For the gender politics, we know that there's gender politics to this. I respect the wishes of your mentors and colleagues, and please try to abide by their, including their preferred gender pronouns as well, use as well. This is not meant as a nuisance. It's a matter of respect, and each of us should be trying to relate to each other on the terms that they want to use as self-identity and identification. If someone makes a mistake, and I have been making mistakes already, please give me and give each other the benefit of the doubt, but keep trying, please, to get it right. And at least I'm saying that as much to myself as anybody else. In some of our traditions, the very structures, this is why it's how deep gender politics goes. It's about our structures and the processes of academia as a profession that were developed by and for primarily middle and upper class men in the West. Our academia now values diversity. And in some cases, our universities actually want diversity and not only say that they want. So let me be blunt. If we want to have equality, and this is my feminist self speaking, for example, including in gender, we have to accept and treat each other as our equals. We have to get used to working with women and non-binary people in positions of power as we would with men. We should be considerate to our peers in this program, our mentees, our fellows, our mentors, value and praise professionalism and scholarship regardless of who it comes from. This is again really basic and pretty much everyone knows. It's again, it's a little didactic for me to be saying, and to be supportive of each other. I think it's incredibly important, especially at this phase of our fellows' life. Personal distance. Traditionally, mentoring has a number of traditions, but in our postmodern Western academic training, it's actually quite more of a delicate dance, where there's a match, see if there's a match and a sort of an honest relationship, a closer relationship than it would be just between sort of any teacher and any student. And I would say it's much more of a collegial relationship. But this relationship has to have a clear and well-respected boundary. We can't just assume that, well, we're high context, so everyone knows what this is about. We don't. And we will be the first ones to find out. We are not pals, not friends, not soulmates. We're not gurus, masters, and disciples, right? So more on a collegial, professional integrity footing. Your work as fellows is voluntary, so is our mentors. Our interactions must be based on being comfortable with and clear about these terms. The best thing to do in our relationships as fellows and mentors is keeping record of our meetings, assignments, exercises, shadowing. That helps us keep us above board. Finding our communication with our mentors and fellows. If something is unclear from what the other person said, do ask. It's totally fine. This is a very good communicative key to success. Right. If you're not meeting in a larger group, I think it's meeting at least in pairs, meaning like there's two mentees or a mentor and then some other IASA officer is great, because then you have plenty of people to sort of understand what's going on. Also think twice about giving out your personal information beyond your working address. Do be strategic about this, and do not just assume that that's totally fine with the other person, or that you can ask for the other person's, right? The option for you not to be contributing is always open. I would say that at our level, if someone does not comment on something or basically just sort of doesn't engage with something, there usually is a good enough reason. So I don't question if people want to share about that. Why? That's fine. Always think about who you're sharing things with. Largely the information in general should be kept within our circles, because remember that we're talking about IASA and RIAS, and however much we want to reform it, we also don't want a bad reputation to be spreading around without being able to control that message, right? So that's just from the association's point of view. If you are doing solidarity work, do preface it when you talk about it and tell people that these involves issues, the things that we're working with, the people we're working with, it involves issues that traumatize people. So you feel people should feel free to disengage where they feel like they don't want to expose themselves to that. Yet at the same time, we know that our empathy as a motive sort of is kind of is an impulse for us to engage in that solidarity work. Our connected humanity, right? Yeah, if you experience something that you think is highly unusual in the program, obviously think of it as, well, this is the first time we're doing this, but do feel free to let Dr. Jessica Sayers know. She's in charge of supporting the fellows, and she'll be in touch with you, certainly. And finally, yes. Yes, I think that I left imposter syndrome here. The reason why I left it here is because it is something that, especially at this stage, especially for folks who are not on the sort of trained and socialized into as sort of the dominant gender and the dominant class and the dominant race in academia. So anybody who is from the sort of previously historically marginalized folks might acutely feel, also women might acutely feel, or people who identify as women, as the imposter syndrome is, I am an imposter. This is basically like an inner voice, and probably people can describe this a lot better than I do. I am an imposter. When will they find out that I'm not really the great scholar and educator that I am? When will they find out? Which is basically something that undermines your self-confidence, and it's a very difficult. It's a difficult thing to grapple with. If this is something, obviously, if this is something very, very regular, then that might be a mental health issue, and that needs professional assistance. But otherwise, do tell each other once, I would say, at least in every meeting, that you are here because you belong here. You are a great scholar and a great educator in the making. All of you. You are earning your PhDs. You have earned your PhDs. And the hiring decisions that you're faced with and the rejection letters are very often not about you, but about the resources, the other people's priorities, the composition of that, the funding decisions, and so on and so on. So try to support each other and verbalize this to each other, to support, uplift each other, and try to sort of dissipate that and do away with that imposter syndrome. It's very human, and it's very good. It's a good idea to also reach out to each other and say, look, I'm feeling very anxious about this. That's fine. Try to be supportive of each other. Right, and I think that the mentors should be introducing themselves. Right. These are the things that they should be briefly sharing with us.
Well, I guess if nobody is going along, I should be the one who is starting. Okay, my name is, as you see, Bilge Çetintaş. I am from Turkey, and I'm from Hacettepe University, Department of American Culture and Literature. I am trained in American studies in general, and my specific area ranges from American literature to American life writing, cultural studies, popular culture, etc. Currently, I am IASA secretary. I am working, I have been involved with IASA since 2016, I believe. I worked in several organizations, several boards in different capacities. I also worked at the department chair and many other administrative units at my university, basically. I was also a Fulbright senior scholar to Michigan. I have lived on and off in United States for about like 5 years, I guess. So that's about it. And I guess I'm also looking forward to this learning experience, both from my point of view and from your point of view as well. Thank you.
I think I'll go next because I have to go soon. I have a dentist appointment and it's on the other side of town. So my name is Gabriela Vargas Cetina, and I'm an anthropologist, and I worked in the Yucatan in Mexico. I guess I studied in Mexico and Canada. So I have worked in Indian reserves in Canada, with Sardinian shepherds in Italy. Now I'm doing research in Spain on the Sevillian Semana Santa. And I'm also interested in dance in India. And here I worked with musicians here in the Yucatan, musicians of trova music, who is kind of the kind of traditional music of the Yucatan. Yeah, so I'm an anthropologist, and I am the executive director of IASA. And now I'm an incoming, affiliated editor at RIAS. And I've been part of IASA for some, I don't know, 8 years, I think. And I'm very glad that George organized this, and I look forward to working with you. And what I was saying is true. We really need to figure out a way to anchor the RIAS account so that we can have a more productive way to generate funds, because as George just said, this has been a primary worry about, how to keep RIAS going. I'm also, I'm the current secretary of the board of the American Anthropological Association. And I'm a professor of anthropology. I teach the anthropology of sound and post-structural theory. And I'm very interested in science fiction. That's it. Oh, and I'm a musician, I guess.
Right, I can go next. Hi, everyone there. My name's Jiaying Kai. I'm from Shanghai, China. You can just call me Jiaying. Currently, I'm working as an assistant professor at University of Shanghai International Studies University, English department. So I was trained in UK in the University of Nottingham. The time when I was doing my PhD, I think the school I was educated was called the School of American, the School of American Studies. But now, upon the time I graduated, I believe, the title of the school was changed. It's now addressed as the School of Culture, Language, and Area Studies. So basically, my research interest covers contemporary American novels, contemporary American literature, especially urban literature, and usually with a comparative angle. So I'm also very interested in comparing contemporary American novels with, contemporary Chinese novels. And in particular, I'm interested in, say, urban fiction, as well as internet-based novels. Currently, I'm also very interested in a literary series. So currently, I'm working on a monograph on Jew criticism in literature and culture. So thank you. Really glad to see all of you guys.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alessandro Buffa. I teach at the University of Naples Orientale, and I was trained in the United Kingdom in media and communications, and United States in US history and culture studies. I am interested in film, music, as a social practice in contemporary cultural practices, Black diaspora, especially sounds, and the idea of the connections between the Black Atlantic and the Black Mediterranean as well. Beyond that, I was inside the International American Studies Association. I work basically on peer reviewing as a peer reviewers, and for other associations, I work as a chair of international committee and critical pedagogies and teaching all these issues. So thank you very much. I look forward to meeting you.
Thank you so much. You already know me. I do feel free to call me George. It's the English equivalent of the Hungarian name, which is really tongue twister, George. I'm originally from Hungary by way of the United States as a PhD, and then 2.5 years in Prague at the Charles University. I am now at the University of Stirling in Scotland. I was trained in American Studies, and now I sort of, I fulfill the role of historian, 20th century United States, social, cultural, some transatlantic, some Native American history, and most recently, in the last 10 years or so, I've also moved into memory studies and a little bit of memory in transatlantic relations, Central Europe, as well as now the UK and Scotland. My current research project is the uses of the memory of John Paul Jones in the long 20th century US, UK, and Scottish relations. It's quite a mouthful. I have been involved with IASA and RIAS since 2005. For some time, I was associate editor of RIAS, and most recently, for the last couple of years, I have been social media officer of IASA. So I am interested in some of that kind of public communication, and I don't even know what else I put down, so you'll just have to refer to that information in the application, because I've been pretty busy with just running this thing in general. So if that is okay, I would just want to very briefly sort of summarize what we gave as expectations for the IASA mentors, so that our fellows know what to expect of them. This was the orientation last Friday. Our mentors are expected to, as their time and workload permit, mentor you in groups, to keep planning your mentoring meetings, sort of as in the first 6 months, maybe then later on, and for the next 6 months, or they can't do it for the next 12 months. And again, instead of trying to paint a pretty picture of IASA and RIAS, rather with you exploring collectively your interest and the issues that came up with the challenges and solutions in their positions. They can bring other experience, previous or simultaneous experience, simultaneous and previous to RIAS and IASA as well. And finally, I've already talked about imposter syndrome. This is basically the last thing. You are allowed to and advised to think about first attending a number of maybe a number of mentoring meetings, and then think about which are the, I don't know if it's 2 or 3, depends really on your fellows' capacity, time, and energy. So we know that yours is finite too. So to be drifting to and eventually settle with a number of mentors, a few, all right, based on how much you can do. And finally, engaging across different, it's nice courtesy to let the mentor know whose group you decide to leave permanently, that they will not take it personally, and they it's just easier, because then they will be able to remove you from their mailing list, so that you don't get stuff all the time. Or you can just simply say, can you please keep me on your mailing list, and still getting those opportunities. Our cultures and traditions are different. Just because we speak some lingua francas, that doesn't necessarily mean that we are actually on a deeper level, even values and behaviors. We're actually very much from the same tradition. So, for example, I get rubbed the wrong way, even though I was PhD in the United States. I get rubbed the wrong way from some assumed familiarity and casualness and informality. And so I, in my life, have tended to sort of go to more respond to it by going a little bit more towards formality and hierarchy. But I have a certain kind of personal motivation about that. I feel like I want to respect people's training years and their ranks and their hard work. So but that's just me, and I have no problems being on a first name basis either. So when in case there's a problem between any two or more people, try to assume that it's a communication it's a cultural informed problem, or it's a different academic traditions informed problem, and give the person the benefit of the doubt, as this is not that person's personality and intentional, but rather something that they bring from their culture, their academic tradition, or I bring from mine. And you could resolve it that way. Do keep an open mind. If you let them, your fellows and your mentors will teach as much as you will teach them, and if they let you teach them. Remember that even direct challenges and debate should consider the ideas. Always refer to the ideas and the work, and not personal character. This is again just an old adage of how to try to keep discussions constructive. And we discussed already the imposter syndrome. So ultimately, this is pretty much it. And I think the rest of it is, I could basically just finally mute myself and make myself disappear and just let people question, answer, discuss. Not everyone at the same. And I think now, if Bilge, if you want to stop the recording, then that's great.